This year ahead sets in motion a new way of thinking about life in Singapore, one that is supposed to focus on more than just material success, from respecting and rewarding every kind of job to nurturing a culture of giving and creating more avenues for participation. After 16 months of intensive consultations, the government is bent on motivating and inspiring people to co-create solutions with it. And this is around everything to do with how you work, live and relax in the Garden City with your loved ones.
Under a viaduct in Choa Chu Kang, a new park blooms. It's the Villa Verde Park extension, conceived with the help of nearby residents. Like other parks, the space boasts a dog run, a play area and a fitness corner, but it also has some unique features that sets it apart. This toddler cycling track and also these unusual floor markings.
I suggested the agility ladder as well as a star, which physiotherapists use to be drawn on the ground. The previous setup was actually lacking in some equipments for resistance training as well as balancing exercises.
It may seem like a simple exercise, but following the markings on the ground can help people assess their balance and agility. It's especially useful for the elderly, athletes and those recovering from injuries. And without input from Dr. So and her team at Ng Teng Fong General Hospital, this area would have been left empty.
This is the second time that NParks has involved the community under the Friends of the Park program.
These efforts will enable more residents to engage in nature-based recreation closer to their homes.
Over at the LTA headquarters, residents gathered, also eager to contribute their ideas.
We receive ideas from this discussion.
This time for the open spaces along the upcoming North-South corridor.
I want to be a part of this because I feel it's a very, very rare opportunity for me to, try to make a difference.
The corridor will stretch 21.5 kilometers, serving towns such as Sembawang, Ang Mo Kio and Rochor. Traffic will be diverted underground or overhead, leaving ground-level spaces open. Some suggestions include green spaces, footpaths or cycling paths. Work is slated to be completed in phases and the authorities are still open to feedback.
We will be taking ideas that we have heard so far from the visioning workshop and incorporate it into the master plan.
And it's not just our shared spaces. Singaporeans are also playing a part in curating the nation's shared memories. The Founders Memorial is expected to open in 3 years' time, and the National Heritage Board has been calling for stories or ideas. So far, over 200,000 people of all ages have given their views on how they've envisioned the memorial to be like.
For me, personally, I think multiculturalism is an important part of Singapore's nation and the country, as it's a very small country. So for that, I think that that was represented at the exhibition.
A preview exhibition, which ran earlier this year, showcased Singapore's road to independence and its nation-building years. From that exhibition, the team got some valuable feedback that will go into shaping the Founders Memorial.
We want Singaporeans to feel for the memorial, and more importantly, we want it to be a space where Singaporeans can come to reflect on the achievements of our past.
With public consultations set to continue, Singaporeans will have a bigger voice in shaping the spaces in which they live, work and play.
The government may have set goals, but it's made clear everyone in the country needs to do their part to help it succeed. From showing care, compassion and empathy for persons with disabilities to accepting them for who they are.
A fun night out for these real estate agents celebrating the successes of the year and the potential of the next, all with a view to enriching their civic consciousness. Everyone at these meals communicating only with sign language. The Singapore Association for the Deaf also feels strongly that social settings can be more inclusive.
Nothing is better than real-life experience. I mean, if you have someone seated opposite you who is a deaf person using sign language, It is good to learn sign language to bridge the communication gap. And the deaf people will also feel very good. They'll feel included by you. And then that's how you have this relationship with them.
To help foster that, these guests got a little help before dinner.
Well, to learn the basics of sign language, the participants first had to go through a half-day crash course to pick up things like alphabets, numbers, and even useful daily conversation starters like "How are you?"
Organisers hope this first step will spur more people to become skilled in sign language. Most who took part say it was an eye-opening experience.
I was actually very curious how I would feel here, but when I came here, I realized that the sign language is something that is not too difficult to pick up.
It's a very good way of communicating with the deaf, and it's a good challenge for us. I mean, it's a very good way of communicating with each other, not using voice.
It's also helped this deaf participant gain more confidence.
Never mind about deafness, I can still interact and communicate with other people with sign language.
That's the kind of payoff that host restaurant The Naughty Chef is banking on. Its owners feel such events hold more opportunity for the deaf, especially in the F&B industry. It, for one, is looking at hiring the deaf.
I don't see why not. So it's all about being able to come up with proper guidance for them and having the patience as well. I think that's very important to teach them on what to do. I think everyone has an equal opportunity in that way.
That equal opportunity will have to extend to existing staff who aren't familiar with sign language. While there may be growing pains with communication, Charlene Koh is confident most hurdles can be overcome with education and greater awareness.
Fulfillment, meaning and purpose, forms that approach for encouraging inclusivity, whatever your circumstance, and the long-cherished notion of one united people.
To help workplaces become more inclusive, firms are making infrastructural changes. A quiet room is one of the latest features in this office. Designed for employees with autism, it provides them a safe space for when they feel overstimulated.
People with autism has an extraordinarily high ability in concentration. They are very good in details, and in most of the case, they can be extremely expert in their field. And these are all skills that we value and can really contribute for the company.
The company has also installed visual alarms for the hearing impaired and lower sinks for those who may be wheelchair bound. But there are some limitations.
In certain areas, we don't have much space, so you still have to accommodate ramps, you still have to change the type of doors that we have. We have to retrofit the building in different areas, but also we cannot disrupt too much the operation.
So, it's looking to develop augmented reality to allow remote working in sensitive areas of the facility. This specialty chemical plant is also tapping on technology.
One of the things we have done is really to implement an automated bottling machine, and that actually helps our older workers to reduce the strain on their body.
Such technologies will also be applied to manage logistics better.
The company is looking to automate this process to make it easier for females and seniors to take on operating roles. They are still in the design stage and they're looking to get the equipment ready by 2025.
These measures have helped to grow their talent pool. More than half of their new hires since 2020 are aged 40 and above. But there are barriers stopping them from doing more.
We need our associates to be actually mobile and to be active and react in the event of an emergency. So this may limit some of our ability to hire individuals with disability.
Even then, one social enterprise that helps persons with disabilities find meaningful employment says workplaces must be more inclusive to stay relevant.
And with that, you'll be able to build better products,
better services that are more inclusive, then that helps you tap into this particular customer segment. There's also enough data and experience on companies that being inclusive helps them with their revenue. There's higher employee engagement and retention.
More importantly, this will also attract a new generation of employees looking for more purposeful work. At 26 years old, Rennie is a young face in the plumbing industry. Growing up watching his father work, he decided to join the trade instead of getting an office job. When he told others about his plans, not everyone was supportive.
Some did make fun of me, but like generally speaking, everybody's very open about this lah. Because at the end of the day, they know that like, hey, Singapore plumbers, not a lot of Singaporeans want to be a plumber already. So it's interesting that like I want to be a plumber. They want to understand like, it's more like a conversation starter for me.
But not many are taking action to join the industry.
According to an association representing those in the trade, there are about 1,100 licensed plumbers here in Singapore, but most of them are in their 60s, which means they may be close to retirement.
To keep labour supply up, the Singapore Plumbing Society says they'll need to grow the workforce by about 40%. While they have been ramping up apprenticeships and courses, they've had to look beyond engaging fresh graduates.
We are also reaching out to the boys' home to see whether we can reach out to these young people to join us in the industries. And also we are also reaching out to yellow ribbons who are ex-convict and is keen to join our industries.
Electricians in Singapore are in the same boat. An association representing these workers estimates that there are about 300 licensed locals in the industry. At least half have already hit retirement age. And redesigning electrician jobs to attract young talent has been trickier than expected.
The business itself is actually as such that it's still a physical work involved, or the environment is still not friendly.
The Labour Union is looking to set up a competency framework that matches wage increments with necessary skills. This in hopes to close the manpower gap and help these essential tradesmen build long-term careers.
The forecast for the next couple of years couldn't be clearer. 20% of Singapore's population will be over 65 and super aged. Staying healthy for longer and slowing the onset of disease is all-consuming. In keeping with that, the need to shift mindsets so aging Singaporeans enjoy a better quality of life. It is in the works to have 8 in 10 seniors get access to active aging centres near their homes in the next 2 years. Just as efforts are underway to expand senior-friendly amenities and reorganise housing options with integrated care provisions.
Singapore's birth rates are at an all-time low, and the island state is preparing itself to become a super-aged society. For seniors, being able to age in place is key.
It maintains their sense of independence and as well as their emotional well-being, right? They can remain socially connected and engaged in the comfort of their homes, right, with their family members and their friends. And this is crucial to aging well.
There are some who may have medical conditions, but prefer to be cared for at home. Such care is available and heavily subsidized. Changes were made this year to allow them to dip into their MediSave account to pay for such services.
Or in the ocean, you can dip your toes.
But seniors who are independent enough to carry out most daily activities can consider spending their golden years at a space like this one. Assisted living facilities have been springing up all over Singapore. Such spaces look after seniors who may have health issues that affect their mobility, such as knee problems, but are otherwise independent. The government is already building such facilities at towns such as Bukit Batok, Queensway and Bedok. But construction takes time, which is why for now, private operators have picked up the mantle. But scaling up such care models is not easy.
Challenges we had were like land use, to be able to get the URA to recognize the assisted living land use. As you know, Singapore is so land scarce, so the hardware itself is already a big challenge for a lot of operators. So this is one thing we have been working with URA and MND, and they've been super supportive.
On top of that, the government is making neighborhoods and public housing more senior-friendly.
In the past, we built HDB flats, and I used to live in one with 2 steps to step up to the apartment. Now that 2 steps is make the difference between isolation and social inclusion. So MND is now putting in ramps so that seniors can come out of their house.
Such efforts seek to reduce the manpower crunch facing the aged care sector and enable seniors to spend their golden years in familiar surroundings.
If I'm in my 70s or 80s, I can still continue to live comfortably and safely in my own home, right? Of course, things need to be, sort of buffer up in order for me to be safe. So I think leveraging on our built environment, where we think of the home as not just within your own space, like your own flat, right? But rather, we think of the entire neighborhood as my backyard.
With seniors preferring to age in place on their own at home, it means Singapore will need a steady supply of new flats to meet the demand from younger families. That supply stream may well have a profound impact on the housing market.
This couple just got married and is hoping to get a resale flat in the next year that's within their budget. And that is their biggest challenge navigating the HDB market today.
I was looking for a northeast area. Yeah, so because of the prices in that area particular is quite high. So we are starting to go moving more outwards from the northeast to maybe to the north.
HDB, if you want to do the glass, you can actually do a square one.
High prices are steering buyers to smaller flats, says one agent. This 3-room flat at Yishun is going for about $470,000, and inquiries have been brisk compared to bigger flats.
We are also seeing each resale unit, we have more viewings before we eventually find a buyer for the unit itself.
That says the property market is slowing down on the back of soaring interest rates. Also simply, property prices have just increased too fast and too much in the last couple of years.
So some buyers take longer to come to a decision because they have to accept the reality that prices could stay elevated for some time and it's not expected to come down.
In the last 3 years, HDB has listed some 70,000 built-to-order flats for sale and is well on its way to its goal of 100,000 flats by 2025. Come the second half of next year, the government will put into effect the new classification of public housing. There will be categories like prime and plus flats. They will come with a minimum occupation period of 10 years and stricter resale conditions, such as the homeowners having to pay back a sum of the subsidies upon selling their flat. Industry watchers say in the long run, this model may help ease prices and moderate the number of million-dollar flats.
I think a lot of buyers will be able to now buy into BTO flat in the prime location, in the central location, and also location which is close to MRT station and amenity.
Meanwhile, some are still banking on private property.
So after we did the calculation, we know that we can afford, and ultimately, buying a home for me is, I want to make money.
But market watchers caution that the private property market will slow down. Some reasons include fewer foreign buyers since the increase in stamp duty and more supply. Close to 40,000 private homes are expected to be completed in the next 2 years.
There will be a lot more pressures on developer to adjust the price. If that happens, then we probably will start to see some price correction, maybe next year or even earlier.
But developers may be reluctant to reduce prices too much because they bear high land and construction costs.
With higher interest rates, the costs for developers, will increase. So that's why they are likely to maintain their higher prices.
Moving forward, market watchers say buyers are likely to be more discerning, choosing projects with higher growth potential. In a few months' time, Evelyn Tan will be moving into her new home sweet home. While waiting for her build-to-order flat, she and her husband rented a common room for 2 years. Many like Evelyn are exiting the rental market as they received the keys to their homes.
I have a few friends, right, who are around my age. We got married about the same time. They were also renting a common room from the open market or from their relatives. So about this period of time, they also collected their keys.
With more HDB flats completed, the rental market has slowed in the second half of the year. For HDB flats, growth in rental prices this year is expected to be around 12%. That's significantly lower than 28.5% last year. Next year, growth may be just 1 to 3%.
So last year alone, we already seen in the private market that rents went up by almost 30% within a year, and for a HDB market as well. So there could be certain price resistance that have set in. So that's the reason why this year rent prices are not growing as much as what we've seen last year.
Over at private rentals, a similar story. Chloe moved out of a shoebox unit into a better apartment in a newly completed condo. And she's paying less in rental, just above $3,000 a month.
The reason why I shifted here is because the previous rent, they actually increased about 50%. Yeah, like from 2K to like 4K plus. So I found this place is like bigger, spacious, and it's near to my workplace.
Chloe signed a 2-year lease, but tenants may ask for shorter leases in the hopes that prices will slow further. Market watchers say investors or landlords may find it harder to keep tenants and renew their leases. That's because landlords are facing stronger competition now as more units enter the market, and tenants like Chloe will have more options for a bigger unit, possibly at a lower rent.
They may face a problem of losing their tenants and not able to lease out the unit. They may add on more financial costs, especially those landlords who actually take out a loan to finance their purchase.
More than 28,000 new private homes have been completed in the last 2 years, and another 10,000 will be completed next year. Rental growth for private homes may top out at 14% for this year, which is lower than almost 30% last year. Just as in the HDB market, growth is expected to slow next year to around 1 to 5%. That slowed down largely due to fewer tenants as people leave the country.
So some of the expats, they have either chosen to leave Singapore or they have shifted from the private market to the HDB market.
By the looks of things, when it comes to renting an HDB flat or private rental, it may just be a tenant's market next year.
Though inflation is expected to ease through 2024, there's no denying lower and middle-income Singapore families will be looking for further relief from the February budget announcement. Along with training allowances for mature mid-career workers, employers are being encouraged to introduce workplace support for caregivers. Despite efforts to respect and reward every job by reducing wage gaps, the pressure is great for those who have both young children and elderly to care for. many of them are in a particularly sandwiched phase of their lives, having to shoulder much responsibility for care, but also expenditure. Little surprise, retirement adequacy is also a great source of anxiety for many of these so-called young seniors who may not have built retirement savings.
Singapore was ranked one of the world's most expensive cities according to a survey by the Economist Intelligence Unit. While those findings mostly apply to expatriates, locals are also feeling the pinch.
Some of the more domestic-oriented, domestic-driven inflationary pressures come from housing and transport. For housing, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, construction was delayed by a couple of years, so this caused the supply to be fairly tight. Meanwhile, for private transport inflation, for some parts of the year, the energy prices were fairly high. At the same time, the limited supply of the COEs due to the 10-year cycle stage at this moment has been fairly tight.
Nearly 90% of the food Singaporeans consume is imported, and prices of basic staples have risen the most. Thai rice prices are up nearly 7%, partly due to export curbs from the world's top producers. Prices of fruits like papayas and pears soared over 15% as poor weather conditions shrunk harvests. This increase could have been more if not for moves by the Monetary Authority of Singapore to strengthen the Singapore dollar.
In 2024, we are still expecting the MAS to continue with its appreciation stance in its Singapore dollar against the basket of currencies. So this will mean that the imported inflation continues to be curbed. However, I think a significant proportion is on the domestic components in Singapore.
Take, for example, water prices. They're set to go up by about 18% over the next 2 years to cover operating costs and long-term investments in water infrastructure. Even then, inflation is expected to ease in the second half of next year.
Going forward, given that Singapore is an aging population, that will also mean that there could be some demand-led healthcare inflation, although we don't anticipate that this will be excessive.
While that might come as a relief for a broad base of Singaporeans, it's not the same for some segments of society.
3 generations of the Lee family live under one roof in this HDB flat in Clementi. There's Cindy with her husband on the left, their 4-year-old child in the middle, and Cindy's elderly parents on the right.
For my mom, she has chronic diseases for many years, I think more than 10 years. Her diabetes was bad, her blood pressure was high, so she had to be on medication and regular checkups.
Cindy is 38 years old, an adjunct professor, and part of what's known as the sandwich generation, adults who take care of both young children and elderly family members. The rising cost of living is making matters more complicated for families like hers.
Certainly, they would face greater cost of living pressure compared to most. So for instance, some of the big ticket items for children include the cost of preschool and childcare, enrichment programs, maybe family holidays. And for the seniors, this would include daily care and various healthcare needs.
Cindy's household's average income may go up to $9,000 a month, but she's feeling the pinch.
Even my own groceries, everything can get up to $200-300 a week. I was like, wow, that's really a lot. Because when it comes to 1 month, it's almost 1,000 over of groceries.
To help Singaporeans cope with rising costs, the Finance Ministry introduced a slew of support measures in the past year. They help with utilities and groceries, senior care, and school fees.
Right now, my daughter's school fees are all using her child development account, which we don't need to use any of our savings at all.
The support comes at a crucial time for families like Cindy's, caught in the middle of caregiving.
The government has lowered the fee caps charged by anchor and partner operators and also set aside more places in government-funded preschool. And there's also this additional subsidies for home caregiving. I think it's been doubled from $200 to $400 a month. And this would really help those who are taking care of particularly lower and middle income households, taking care of family members with moderate disabilities, including seniors with such disabilities.
For many in this sandwich generation, managing money in a time of rising costs means saving as much as they can, especially when expenses are likely to keep going up as parents and children grow older. Cindy says the government support does help, but it can also do more to educate people about the support schemes so people know where to go and what to do.
With daily necessities getting more expensive, some are feeling the pinch more, especially those who have poor health. Mr. Abdul Razak Jafar lost his job 7 years ago and hasn't had a steady income since. The 58-year-old also has conditions like arthritis and high blood cholesterol, and he's struggling to afford the treatments.
Working, I got pay lah. Now I'm not working, then very long already, then cannot pay.
With government subsidies, he can. For instance, safety nets like Medifund help needy Singaporeans pay for remaining medical bills after they've exhausted other means of payment like MediSave. Even so, healthcare expenditure for households in Singapore has been rising. Now, according to data from the Health Ministry, lower-income families saw the biggest increase. In the 2007 financial year, these families spent around 6% of their monthly household expenditure on healthcare needs. Now, nearly a decade later, this figure has risen to nearly 8%. On average, this translates to around $250 each month. For those like Mr. Abdul Razak, a big chunk of that is spent on medication for chronic illnesses. That's why the government has embarked on several preventive care campaigns to get Singaporeans to lead a healthier lifestyle and reduce such expenses. For instance, encouraging people to consume less salt. Excessive salt consumption can lead to high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke.
We aim to reduce Singaporean sodium intake by 15% by 2026. This 15% equates to about 1.5 to 2 grams of salt per day. As part of this strategy, HPB will continue to engage and work with suppliers and manufacturers of salt, sauces and seasonings to get them to increase the variety of lower sodium ingredients and products, as well as F&B operators to reduce sodium in their dishes.
Singapore's spending on healthcare has tripled to $11.3 billion in 2019. That's up from less than $4 billion in 2010.
Healthcare system is like a balloon. The air is coming in the balloon is like rising costs. And so you squeeze too much on one side, it will explode on the other sides. So I think you see that phenomenon in the last few years.
But Dr. Phua stresses that policies put in place by the government, like national insurance, have helped keep costs low for citizens.
We're the first country in the world to have gone for compulsory savings. Then we use part of the savings as premiums into social insurance. So I would expect that balance to be there, that government will set the rules to make sure that there's enough for the future, but government will have to contain costs where it works.
As Singapore society continues to age, healthcare costs will weigh even more heavily on those supporting both the old and the young.
In quite a switch, the refresh on the Singapore Dream for the next decade encourages lifelong learning not centered on grades. Instead, every individual is to make a difference in their own way, diverse as the pathways may be. From sustainability to the arts and also sports, there are plenty of opportunities on the horizon. As younger Singaporeans get more exposure and learning, much is entrusted to them to contribute in wider ways by being the change we want to see socially. And more than at any time in this nation's history, young adults today are being empowered to build, care, steward, and unite. Much hope on remaking the Singapore dream rests with them. Samarna Singh is only 26 years old, but already the proud owner of sustainable beauty brand Coco Veda. She's also served as a United Nations Youth Ambassador and was one of Singapore's youth delegates to COP28 in Dubai.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity. We don't usually get an opportunity to listen into policymakers at the decision-making level as well, and to understand, some of the trade-offs that they may have, to understand some of the decisions that they're making.
Samarna was among 20 young voices representing Singapore at the Big Climate Summit in Dubai. It's part of Singapore's spotlight on youths working for a greener future. But they're not the only ones eager to take on the climate fight. Mid-career professionals are also rising to the challenge. 38-year-old Gavin Chan is a geotechnical engineer who's a butterfly enthusiast. And with some help from Workforce Singapore, he's metamorphosed into a sustainability guru for the built environment.
You see more frequent extreme temperatures, temperature records being broken, and that really got me thinking as a designer, as a professional in the built environment, how do we better work with clients to deliver solutions to society that has a fit for purpose, but at the same time deals with the complexities and requirements of climate change.
Workforce Singapore says the Sustainability Career Conversion program that Gavin enrolled in tailors courses for different companies' needs, and there is growing need to adapt.
Companies are reskilling existing employees to take on new or expanded sustainability roles to kickstart transformation towards sustainability to ensure their business and workforce remain relevant and competitive in the emerging green economy.
But the climate fight will require more than giving young people megaphones and workers a platform to transform. It requires the brain trust from institutes of higher learning. This one is studying how to introduce corals to protect shorelines.
Singapore's coastline is actually mostly made up of artificial coastal defences, essentially seawalls, about 70% of the coastline. And these tend not to support as much biodiversity and marine life as natural shorelines and habitats. So what we're particularly interested in is the space between the very soft options like mangroves and the very hard options like a seawall. Can we build a hybrid coastal protection that has some of the benefits of the hard protection and maybe a hard backstop, which will give some security in the long term that Singapore won't be flooded, but then add in as much green elements as we can.
This is one of 9 research projects that National Water Agency PUB has commissioned to deal with the coastal conundrum. But there's also the need for a strong pipeline of experts and professionals for this area of work.
We need people to continually research to understand upcoming and emerging technologies, and we need a large stream of professionals to eventually carry out all the projects on site and make sure that things from paper can translate into actual measures at different locations of Singapore.
Protecting Singapore's coasts is a colossal task, but it's only a fraction of what's required to chart the right course in the bigger climate crisis. And by giving different groups more say in the matter, Singapore is getting more hands on deck in its climate fight.
And we saw him, the cat in the hat.
And saw him they did. More than 20,000 people came to see the popular Dr. Seuss story since its run began on 18th October. It's a sign of a recovery in Singapore's performing arts sector, but one in which COVID-19 has left its mark.
People have changed their behaviors. They work from home. They might not come into town for a production in the evening. But we're also seeing a lot of new people who miss that human connection.
Attendance is getting healthier thanks to both returning and new audiences, but there's still some way to go to fill seats.
We're not quite there. We still have some time to go. But I think by doing different things for different people and building that confidence, it's safe, it's fun. You need this. So I think roughly we're getting there, but give us another year, hopefully.
As RT says, the number of patrons this year is rounding up to about 90,000. It's slightly down from last year's 110,000 when SRT and entertainment production house iWay staged the very popular LKY musical. Bigger shows with bigger names are expected to keep driving ticket sales next year.
The Cat in the Hat, Hamilton, all of these global phenomenons are really popular pop culture references. A lot of people want to go experience that with themselves or their families, and I think that's going to be the driver for many of the art scenes.
Broadway's mega hit Hamilton will have its run here next year, along with Matilda the Musical and local productions of Dear Evan Hansen and Little Shop of Horrors, famous shows that can easily pull crowds. The challenge for local performing arts is in getting more people to lesser-known shows that often require more marketing and promoting with a tighter budget.
Now, the caveat could be potentially is if that local artist has a decent social media following. So let's say they have a lot of followers on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. Then if you could leverage their community and their network to then come to the shows, it makes it a little bit easier from the organizer's perspective to promote some of these artists.
The recovery in the performing arts is also mirrored in the visual arts on which COVID-19 has also left its imprint. Here at the National Gallery Singapore, it's altered the rules of engagement.
We actually learned a lot during the COVID days. We learned that we need to look at the entire journey, right, from attracting them to engaging them and bringing them in and then re-engaging them.
The gallery's website now features content for visitors to interact with before they visit the museum. It thinks out of the box by taking exhibitions to theme parks and shopping malls. It also pays more attention to its range of audiences, like with this new collection that draws similarities between Southeast Asian and Latin American art.
Actually, we're more or less above 90% to pre-COVID levels. Our last complete year, we welcomed about 1.5 million visitors. And the profile is also coming back very closely to pre-COVID, both locals as well as our foreign visitors, and across the different demographics.
The outlook is encouraging for the different genres. The National Arts Council expects local interest in the arts to keep growing, and Singapore is rolling out a new 5-year plan to grow the arts scene.
There's much for Smiley Shanti Pereira to be happy about in what's been a record-breaking year. Double gold at the SEA Games, national marks and personal bests broken time and time again, and the icing on the spring cake, glory at the Asian Games.
Crazy.
Singapore's first gold in track and field at the ASEAN in almost 50 years. Next stop for the sprint queen, Paris.
We're still in that planning process and just seeing what is the best plan A, B, C that we can go towards. On a mental note, I think I'm just excited. I'm in this. Both my coach and I were in a new kind of experience. I've never been in a process where I'm training towards the Olympics, and I know that I'm definitely going compared to the last Olympics where I went as a wildcard and I only found out like a month or 2 months before the games.
She's now hitting her strides in training after taking a well-deserved break following a packed calendar. Shanti and her coach are starting to ring in the changes.
Introducing more specific gym sessions to grow like maybe my hamstrings or my glutes or stuff like that, things that perhaps I wasn't doing in the past.
Kite foiler Max Mader will be another star to watch next year. In August, the world champion secured an Olympic quota spot for Singapore. So I joined him during his training to find out how he's gearing up for the waters ahead. Let's go. Hi Max.
Hello.
How's it going?
Great, thank you.
Like Shanti, Max won gold at the Asian Games. But unlike Shanti, he's not likely to change anything anytime soon.
Coming to the Olympic Games like this, it's almost you're even more scared to try and change something because training regimens have worked up until now, and then you have no reasons to change them. So it's almost like, don't touch the magic, right? Let it work and trust that it will help you.
After the Youth World Championships in Brazil, Max heads to Egypt for a training stint. As for the prize Paris tickets, Singapore have also punched theirs in another sailing event, the men's laser, as well as 2 in swimming. Sport Singapore says efforts are well in motion to help athletes prepare for the July showcase.
If the athletes need to be in Europe earlier to acclimatize, we have already made those preparations to put them in Europe at appropriate junctures to make sure that they participate in the pre-games competition leading up to Paris.
If you have a message for the Shanti who will be competing in Paris a few months down the road, what will it be?
I think I would tell her that you did every single possible thing that you could to get to this moment. So embrace it and enjoy the wonderful moment.
Tell myself, remember that you're here to have fun and to compete. And so the most important thing is that you come away from the experience not regretting anything you did.
Well, it's that kind of conviction for no regrets that's also shaped how Singapore handles its future, even if climate change poses the country a risk. Singapore will not seek help internationally from the Breakthrough Loss and Damage Fund that nations adopted at the Climate Summit in Dubai. And while the pandemic may have changed a lot about how we live, it has also forged much clarity on the way forward.